Hello and welcome to Run It Back on the Raptors Republic Network. I'm Zophie Sheikh, joined here by Cody Wiles. Fortunately, no Kyle Ramnarine this week, but we will hold it down without him. And Cody, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Toronto Maple Leafs up 2-0
Yeah,
in the
they are.
series in the Battle of Ontario. So it's been fun. I love this time of year. April is such a fun sports month between NBA, NHL playoffs, NFL draft as we're recording is tomorrow. Also really excited for that. You got the Masters. There's a couple more things that I'm missing as well. The MLB
The
season is
Jays, the
the
Jays are
MLB
getting in the
season.
swing.
So it's a really fun time. Happy to be talking about it. Basketball Raptors. That's what we're on today. So we got to dial
Yeah,
in on that.
we will be talking about basketball and the Raptors, but I do gotta say, this may sound very Toronto Maple Leafs fan of me, but does it not truly feel different this year? Like I was talking to Jess about this, and because she doesn't pay attention to sports as much, but I was even saying their their defensive core is starting to get healthy, starting to look more poised. Even their core four, they're produced. I know it's 2 games so far. It's against the Senators, who are this young plucky team, but as a guy, you probably follow hockey a lot more than I do, but does it not feel a little different this year so far?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you why because, well, for one, you get a new coach in there
Yeah.
who has done a phenomenal job. The decor specifically is the defensive goaltending is much improved from last year. If you're going player by player, Samsonov, the Stolars,
Hmm.
much
Stoller
better.
is feisty, by the way. I saw that video of him with
Yes.
Greg earlier, in the crease. He's a
Yeah,
feisty dude.
maybe probably should have been a call, wasn't.
Yeah, yeah, probably.
But and yeah, they're blocking shots like they're defensively hunkering down this season, and they won the Atlantic, so they're not taking on the Cup winner or Cup finalists every
Yeah.
year. So and then yeah, they swapped players in and out, so they're looking good so far. It's a long road, 14 more wins for the old Toronto Maple Leafs, but yeah, we're talking Raptors today, and it might be a
Yeah.
little while, maybe as soon as next season that we're counting down playoff wins.
That would be exciting. I think it is a good reminder of just how electric the city can get around
Yeah.
playoff time. I know the Leafs have been in the playoffs for the last couple of seasons, but it just refreshes your memory of what Maple Leaf Garden or Jurassic Park during the playoffs can look like. How the energy can be just so electric and just it's infectious almost, right? Like everyone gets into it. People who aren't even necessarily hockey fans all the time are paying attention to it more. And the same was said about the Raptors back in the day. Like I remember their championship run. I had friends and family asking about the Raptors who don't normally do. It's just one of those things that brings a city together. So
Yeah.
hopefully the Raptors can be back there next season, Cody. But for now, this year is over for the Raptors. No playoffs, unfortunately. But I think that gives us some time to recap the year, kind of what some of the players did, a bit of a summary of sorts for the roster and some of the more notable names. And so today we're going to start with the core trio, the barbecue trio, as we've been calling it, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, and Emmanuel Quickly. But that's not all we're going to talk about. We're also going to dive into a little bit of the first round of the NBA playoffs. It has been pretty exciting so far. There's been a couple duds of games, but some of the series are looking really spicy, so we'll talk about them. And then lastly, we're also going to dive into a bit of CBL chatter. The season is less than a month away. Canadian League Basketball League is starting to ramp up. And we figured it'd be fun for us to talk about it because obviously here at Raptors Republic, we cover everything basketball in this country. So we figured why not? And yeah, so we'll go into that a bit. So, Cody, a lot of hoops to talk about, all different kinds. But before we do get into it, we just want to remind everyone to please like this video. If you could leave a comment letting us know what you think about some of the Raptors end of season stuff. There's a bit of news as well going around. And just make sure you share it as well so we can get to as many people as possible and you don't miss anything when it comes to the Raptors Republic community. But with that being said, let's run it back. And Cody, like I said, we are going to start with the barbecue trio. And I know we want to talk about each of the players individually, but very quickly, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the core as a unit. So the three guys, because this was basically their first full season together, and I put full in air quotes, which I'm sure we're going to talk about as to why. But last year, obviously, RJ Barrett and Manny quickly traded midway through, and then this was the first time they come into camp together. They get the full off season. They get to be a unit into this year. So I guess you can rate it however you want, whether it's a grade, whether it's a rating out of 5, 10, whatever, or just your general thoughts. But what did you make of the first year of BBQ?
Yeah, you know what? It's so funny you said full season because they actually played more minutes together last season
Yeah.
than this year. Brutal. I think it was a brutal year for the three, in my opinion. I'd love to hear how you value these numbers that I'm about to list off to you, because I remember I posted this on Twitter, would have been about a month back now, about their numbers together, their net rating and all this, and people were firing back with a whole bunch of different stuff. So I'm interested to hear what you think. But out of 21 three-man lineups to play at least 250 minutes on the Raptors, Barbecue has the worst net rating, minus 12.7. They have the second worst defensive rating, all the way up at 115, and the worst offensive rating at 102.3. And just for some context, that net rating, minus 12.7, 802nd out of 839 lineups in the NBA to play at least 280 minutes. So, pretty brutal numbers. Small sample size, only 283 minutes exactly. They had better numbers last season across the 430 minutes. But what do you make of this? Is it? I know maybe there wasn't the best talent around them, and it was a lot of in and out. Is that kind of where your head's at, or is it something actually like? Is there actual substance here about, hey, maybe we got to start looking at other things here?
Yeah, I'm not ready to jump off the ship or rip the band-aid, or whatever you want to call it. We are not the end of the DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry tenure, right, where they just
Yeah.
kept running into LeBron and you knew something had to change. We are not there yet. But what I will say is this season for BBQ was disappointing. Point blank. I think the numbers point to it. And part of that, a big part of it, like you said, is just how much injuries derailed this thing. We talked about it. The presumptive starting five. When was it they actually got on the floor together, all five of them? Was it February or January or whatever? Like
Something like that.
it took the second half of the season. And like you said, 285 minutes as a three-man unit for BBQ. And then if you go through the last two seasons, it's 724 minutes. For
Yeah.
context, in a full season of 82 games, there's around 4,000 minutes of basketball to be played. These guys have just over 700 minutes through like basically a season and a half together. They just, and I think that's part of the disappointment. Like when I say disappointing, I don't just mean their play. I also mean the circumstance. And I think that plays into the play, to be quite honest with you. There's no there really hasn't been any synergy there as a unit, is my biggest thing when it comes to BBQ. Like you don't look at them as a collective. They've had their moments individually and as spurts. And I think personally, that's probably the next challenge for Darko Rajakovic. We've talked about how much he's helped these guys develop as individuals. We've seen the leaps from players. Scotty Barnes has taken steps as a defensive anchor. Emmanuel quickly with his playmaking a little bit, but he, again, injuries for him. We're going to probably talk about that in a second. And RJ Barrett, playmaking, defensive strides here and there. Like they're showing things individually, but when you look at a core that you want to build around, which it seems like I wouldn't be like hyperbolic saying that these three guys plus Brandon Ingram are like very much the core of what they want to build around. Like it just hasn't been there so far. The numbers point to it. Like you said, like it's a minus 12 like net rating basically through their 285 minutes this year. They weren't winning minutes together. So I think that does speak to a concern that they have to address. Granted, like obviously we know development wasn't the priority, winning wasn't the case. They were, to your earlier point, playing with players who weren't nearly as productive. They had to try to lift some lineups up, and that does get really ugly at times. But like at the end of the day, point blank, this year the barbecue trio was disappointing.
Yeah, I mean the number. Say what you want about all the the circumstances around it. The numbers weren't good, so
No.
you'd rather have good numbers than bad numbers. But the bad numbers might not be all telling, but it still means that there's something funky going on. I will say in their 430 minutes last season, they were winning minutes, a 2.9 net rating,
Yeah.
a 111 defensive rating, and a 114 offensive rating, which are both better than what they did this season in a bigger sample. So it's not completely lost, but I mean, with Brandon Ingram coming in, we might have to there might be some shifting around in BBQ, and it might be Barnes, Brandon, and quickly if we're going to start evaluating numbers like this, just simply because, I mean, I think next year is going to be all telling about is this the three? I mean, with Brandon Ingram coming in, it's almost feels like a little bit of a sign that the Raptors front office is not fully sold. They can all play together for now, but I mean, there is some long-term money questions coming into play here soon, eventually. But maybe we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Maybe we should focus on the season, just how they played. But yeah, the numbers were not good.
Yeah, I think that puts it well. Like, it's definitely one of those things where like you take in all the context into account. you can't brush it away. That's the thing. Like injuries were a problem. Yes, the not winning and tanking basically was part of the equation. Yes, but at the end of the day, the trio didn't look like a good basketball unit and the numbers point to that. So I think that is something they have to address. They have to work on it. Like you said, Brandon Ingram might just be the big change here, and that's maybe all they needed. And we'll see how that impacts the rest of these guys. But as long as they address it and find that cohesion as a unit, or like you to your kind of what you're alluding to, Cody, is if Masai Ujiri and the front office kind of pivot in some direction. They gave themselves a ton of optionality, and we also know the financial constraints that are kind of creeping up on them. So in one way or the other, this is probably going to be addressed. But for now, I think it's just like, let's get the basketball part sorted out, is I think where we're kind of heading towards.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's how you have to do it. They have all the talent in the building, and hey, maybe it does work. I mean, theoretically, the play styles do can work together if done properly here, especially in Darko Rakovic's fast paced ball moving around system. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I guess that's the biggest problem with the Raptors is that who they've had in place haven't had time to play together, and now we're adding somebody who's a ball dominant guy into all this, plus more rookies, plus it's a lot of not playing together. But like you've been saying, Z, for a long time now, it's the optionality. And you just brought it up, pivoting. They can do a lot of different things. But next year is a big year for barbecue specifically, for Barrett, for everything, for Darko, for the whole team in general, because I think there's some expectations now. They talked about that at media day. So it's going to be fun. We've talked about it. We're excited because there's a lot of different things that can happen, but it's interesting for sure. It's interesting when you're looking at it in the rearview mirror here this season.
Yeah. The last thing I'll mention on that, and you kind of like touched on it, that's why I wanted to bring this up, is that I feel like continuity is so underrated in this league. Like I think just being able to continually work and develop together, whether it's through the coaching staff or the players in a core unit, like it makes such a difference. Like look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, for example. Like last year, things weren't going all that great. Yes, they did bring in a new coach, but then they just empowered a lot of their guys, and they started to understand how players need to kind of work around each other. How can they empower Evan Mobley to be more of like an on-ball type of player? How can they get Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell to play with each other? Like continuity eventually does breed positive production in my mind. And at least for the most part, obviously sometimes teams do hit a wall or plateau. And while you're getting there, just having stability and continuity is going to make a difference for a young team. So I think with the Raptors, with the injuries, with inserting and taking away guys, like it is giving themselves options, which is good. But at the same time, like they have not had the opportunity to put like stints together to really learn each other and play. Like we said, like through 2 seasons, you have just over 700 minutes. That is not really a whole lot of a basketball to kind of figure each other out. So hopefully with like all the stuff you mentioned, Cody, and like a bit of continuity mixed in with that, they can start seeing some production on the court as well. But like, let's start breaking these down like player by player with the barbecue trio. And obviously, Cody, we do have to start with Scotty Barnes. I'll just put up a little graphic here for the people listening are watching on YouTube. We do have a breakdown of all the players. So for Scotty Barnes this season, he averaged just over 19 points, 7.7 rebounds, 5.8 assists. Sorry, he did average a career high in steals with 1.4. He averaged a block as well, about 44.6% from the field and 27% from the 3-point line. So Cody, I guess just like you don't have to make a blanket statement, but what did you make of Scotty Barnes' season?
Yeah, I think maybe expectations were a little too high for him. I think a lot of people wanted to see that jump offensively. And because everybody has the idea of this number one guy that that bucket getter. Scotty stagnated there. But he got to try a lot of things. I think that's in a season that the Raptors kind of wanted to have. Why not just let him run out there and do everything he wanted to do? But I mean, for offensively, for me, what I loved was the mid-range game this season. He really improved on, his signature move now. It's like that little turnaround, fadeaway, almost Dirk-esque kind of thing. A lot of good stuff in the mid-range area, in the post area. He shot so many balls. He attempted so many attempts on the team in the paint, only 45%. I thought those numbers would be a little higher for his field goal
Yeah,
percentage in the paint, and then in the mid range as well. He was just shy of 40%, but he was by far over 100 shots more than everybody in the mid range. So he clearly is been the main operator in the area. The passing out of there has been great. He was getting doubles thrown at him at one point, and he was making the correct read. So that's what I liked offensively. Obviously, the 3-point shooting was bad, maybe timid at times. Would like to see him get downhill and aggressive more, because in the restricted area, he was fantastic, 65%. So, and he took, outside of Yakapurtle, he took the most attempts. Oh, and Barrett, sorry. So he took the third most attempts. Would probably like him to take a little bit more. But that was the game offensively for me. And then defensively, I mean, he took a jump. I don't know if you want to touch on the defense, but I think everybody had the expectations of the offensive jump, but it was the defense that really took the jump.
Yeah, like defensively, I think it was just it was, I don't even know if I call it strides per se, because you've seen it before, right? Like you've seen how he can be this backline sweeper, but then he was taking on more assignments at the point of attack. He was stepping up on guys. I think there's a graphic going around on Twitter for a bit where like once Scotty Barnes was guarding these all-star caliber, all-star type players, what their field goal percentages was, and they're all like 40% or below. Like he was just locking up dudes. So I think like defensively, he's just been an anchor. And I will say that also admitting the fact that like the defense wasn't necessarily completely shut down just because of Scotty Barnes, but the second half of the year, like the Raptors had one of the best defensive ratings in the league. Granted, their competition wasn't the best, but Scotty Barnes was the only consistent guy out of this barbecue trio that was playing. He did reach 65 games, the only of the three to do that. So like their defense was really good in the second half of the season, and his play was directly, I think, related to that. So I think that's a testament to him. So I think defensively, we've seen a lot from him. There's like, we know what he's capable of when you look at his physical tools. But like, I think for me, like it is what you said, Cody. Like I have a lot of the same notes, and it's just about like the offensive consistency is something you do want to see develop a bit more. But at the same time, like I don't want to say I'll push back, but when I look at it, I don't think he stagnated because he was experimenting. Like at the end of the day, like the numbers absolutely do need to get better efficiency wise. Like 27% from three, 44% from the field. Like those just aren't great, especially with the volume of shots that you're putting up. Like you do want that to go up, especially because you can be a lot more efficient closer to the basket. But like when you experiment that much, in a quote unquote lost season, I don't take it as a complete L because you're trying to figure stuff out.
Exactly.
And like if at the end of the day, if he comes out of it with this go-to mid-range stuff, works on it in the offseason, gets more efficient, well, then this season was worth it, right? Because like I think we can all agree that next season, I put in my notes here that I prefer that next year when you are trying to go for playoffs, there's honestly less experimenting. Because this was your year to experiment and try stuff. Next season, like you really do want to do the stuff that works and you're good at. So like this year, you were 97th percentile in mid-range frequency, but you were 60th percentile in efficiency. Okay, cool. You figured out where you're comfortable and where you want to play. Next year, you kind of want to see those things kind of even out a bit more and kind of hit that sweet spot. But like until like when that happens, hopefully, like I think we can look back at this and not be as concerned with the efficiency type of stuff and think of it as like stagnating, because it was like a learning thing for him because of what the season demanded just wasn't there wins wise. So I think that was one of those things where like I see the concern from people about his offensive woes, but it's just like he was very clearly throughout the year just constantly going through phases of trying things. Remember, like early on in the season, everyone was like, why the heck is Scotty taking so many damn threes? And he was just like very intentionally chucking them up. And like, I think it was just one of those things where he was trying to figure it out, or like where he wanted to shoot from, what his spots were and whatnot. Granted, again, it didn't eventually turn into much. His efficiency still wasn't great on the season. But then as the season went on, he figured out where he wants to go. But I agree with you where like next year, hopefully you want to see him as more of a play finisher, especially with a ball handler in Brandon Ingram who can kind of set him up and stuff, get him closer to the basket. And you spoke about it a little as well, where he had moments of timidness. I think that was like, I wrote down pros and cons for this year. My pros were obviously on the defensive end. He figured out his go-to moves. He experimented. But as I guess a con, it was that passive play at times. There was quite a few stretches throughout the year where he did kind of like take a back seat, sit around and watch when you kind of like want like him to be like, hey, give me the ball, get it in my hands, let me go work. Again, he also had moments of aggression, but like there was like these ups and down swings that you kind of wanted to see again even out. When you have a star player, you really do want them to kind of command that attention and take care of business. And that was one of those things where like I'm hoping to see him grow with. I don't know if you had thoughts on that part or you wanted to expand on that aggressiveness a bit more as well.
I mean, he's still developing, right? Like we
Yeah,
all coming in to the league, Scotty wasn't this go-to bucket getter, shifty handle.
that's a good point.
Let me get to my spot and score. That was never his game. So the fact that it's taking a little bit longer to develop is it shouldn't be that shocking. And I don't think you can be upset at his year based on everything else we've talked about and everything else that's happened. But yeah, I just one last thing with the 3-point shooting I wanted to bring up. He shot the second most above the break threes this season, and that's kind of more so when I was at the Tibbiness, where it was just like he's just chucking it up from above the break and letting it fly. Only 26% from above the break, which is obviously really bad. When the ball's out of his hands a little bit more next year, and when you're talking about that play finishing, the corners three, it could be potential for Scotty to, get some points from the 3-point line that way. 34% on corner threes this season, only 41 attempts, but I mean, that's something that potentially could be expanded if, not to say that Scotty's better than just put him in the corner, put him in the dunker spot, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that's a role that he could lean into a little bit more. I mean, it's probably going to have to when you have just so many dudes who are on the ball, you know what I mean? So, yeah, last thing I wanted to touch on with him, but I guess we can move on here because I think we've picked apart Scotty enough.
Yeah. I think we're both obviously still excited because we see the ceiling is so high and there's a lot of potential there. But like, yeah, we saw what needs to be worked on, but what also did go really well for him in an experimenting year. But let's move on to RJ Barrett. I'm just going to bring up our graphic for our YouTube watchers again and our audio listeners. RJ Barrett averaged 21.1 points per game this year, which I believe led the Raptors team in scoring, 6.3 rebounds, 5.4 assists, which were a career high for a full season. Under a steal and under a block a game, 46.8% from the field, and 35% from the 3-point line, Cody. And I guess just like from you, same question. Like, what did you kind of make from RJ Barrett's first full season with the Raptors?
I mean, what a year. What a year. Career highs in points, rebounds, and assists. I mean, he took advantage of having the ball in his hands quite a bit, and he played well. I want to ask you this: yes, RJ Barrett had a good year, put up career highs across the board, but is it on a championship level team, on a playoff like high caliber team? I mean, is RJ Barrett going to one have the ball in his hands like that, and two really be producing like that on a good team?
I think that's a great question, but I think while I try to answer it, I will also be fair is that you could ask that question of any of these guys. Like I could ask the same question about Scotty. I could ask the same question about IQ. Hell, you could ask it about Jakob, Brandon Ingram, whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like I think it's fair to like if we are asking it of RJ, that does apply to some of these other guys as well, these important players.
The
But like
reason I ask is because he is the one without the contract. So
yes, yeah, he is
yeah,
extension eligible. Totally fair. I think a lot of it comes down to like how like what system is he in, right? Because if the question is like, can he do that on the Knicks? Well, we saw it. It like he was pretty awesome in the playoffs his last year when he was there. But at the same time, like just him around very isolation heavy players, there was lots of times where he was stuck in the corners, where he was stranded a bit, and he wasn't nearly as productive. And then when he's not being offensively productive, defensively, he's disengaged. And then you kind of see him kind of fall out of place a little bit on that end as well. So like I think it really just does come down to like what system is he in? Because at the end of the day, RJ Barrett's like what, like 25, 24?
yeah.
Like he's still pretty easy. He hasn't hit the prime of his career yet. He's consistently developing. Like we saw it this year. Like you said, career high in assists, career highs across the board. He took a jump massively as a playmaker. Like whether it was operating the pick and roll, he looked more comfortable. Whether it was just initiating different actions for guys, like he was awesome. So I think like he's just shown enough strides and an ability to learn that if he's in the right system that empowers him, I'm not convinced yet that he can't be a positive player on a championship team. Am I ready to say he would be the second option, third option? Like, I'm not entirely sure. Again, he's super young. It's hard to tell, especially with this play style and the way he like kind of demands. I don't say demands ball, but like the way he like wants the ball in his hands. It's really hard to say. But I'm not gonna like cross it out yet. That's for sure.
Yeah, I guess I gotta get out of the mindset of this long term. We're trying to review their seasons, but it's hard when the long-term team building aspect, because I'm not sure
You
where
want to
he's
project. You want to project, right? Because at the end of the day, everything about this team is about projecting forward.
and so it's like what does it look like again? Like you just talked about with Scotty. What does it look like with the ball in RJ Barrett's hands a little less? Um,
Yeah.
I think he developed around the edges of his game though, like you were talking about, the playmaking was great. Showed real signs defensively in the second half of the season. He was a big reason, again, competition, asterisks, whatever. Um, you play who you play. He showed real signs defensively as somebody who can guard some wings there. So, I mean, if he's giving you that effort, if he's going to be able to make some passes like that, and then still be able to get to the rim with those crafty moves and finish with the left and with the right, um, then it can work out. But I'm afraid he had too good of a year. Is going to want too
Yeah.
much money,
Fair.
deservingly so. And the Raptors are going to get priced out a little bit, but maybe they can come to an agreement or something. Like you mentioned, empowering him, fitting in the system. He has clearly been one of the biggest beneficiaries of the
Yes.
Raptors system and Darko. So, um, yeah, I mean, obviously, great year. Like you can't nitpick it. I'm just there's not much to say other than he had a great year, and we've touched on everything. It's just I'm getting a little ahead of myself again, trying to project um,
Well,
long
I
term
think,
here.
yeah, I think it is one of the biggest question marks to your point. So I think it's fair to get ahead of yourselves and start to think about it, especially when you look at the financial constraints. Because like, if it honestly, if it was picking between RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl, I think just Jakob Poeltl, because of his position and what he offers as like just how he empowers the rest of the players and frees things up for them, you probably have to lean towards keeping Jakob because they're both extension eligible, right? So it raises those questions about like what numbers are RJ Barrett going to come in at, like can they work around it? And in one world, I will say like if RJ Barrett just basically puts his price too high and the Raptors don't have a choice, well then you kind of dust your hands and again you pivot. You have Brandon Ingram, you have him to kind of fill in that role. I think it almost makes a decision easier versus like if RJ Barrett is willing to come back at a quote unquote reasonable number, well then it goes back to your point, Cody. There's
Yeah.
only one ball to go around and so many mouths to feed. How do you figure it out? I'm not saying that's not a good problem to have. I'm saying like if RJ Barrett takes the problem out of your hands, well then so be it. Like that's life. He wants to go get paid. By all means, he had a great year. So I think to your point, like it's those questions just surround this team so heavily right now. So I can see why you're looking ahead. What I wanted to ask you though, like I saw like with Scotty, I wrote down pros and cons of RJ's game. Just like again, his pros obviously the playmaking leap. I think one of the pros was his shooting efficiency for the most part kept up. I remember last year when he joined the Raptors, it was like he was on fire, especially from beyond the arc, and we're like, can he keep it up? And again, 35% from three isn't like world beating stuff, but he was pretty solid in terms of just like outside shooting. He's obviously one of the most efficient drivers on this team, and he's one of the more productive just driving players in the game of basketball. His volume scoring was awesome. Cons, again, the defense was getting better. He still needs to improve overall, especially off ball. I think he can get disengaged from time to time. And like to your point, like I think another thing was like I'm not sure if his game proved to me that he can scale down when it needs to. So when the ball is in his hands less, especially if you throw in a Brandon Ingram there, like is he going to be able to bring his game down or up when it needs to be? So I guess kind of going off of that, Cody, my question, and you might be able to answer this with what you're about to say, is like, what's next for RJ Barrett? Like developmentally, like I guess going into next season, like what's the goal? What do you want to see him add to his game or change or what it may be?
I mean, I don't know if it could be added next year, but some in between game would be nice.
Okay.
The ability to, show a little bit of that. I know it's a dying breed here, but maybe like a floater or two, like no, it's just something to counter. Of I mean, he's so good at getting downhill into the rim, anyways. It's almost like a moot point, but maybe a little of an in between game. I think is just the weakest part of
Yeah, fair.
him as an overall player. I don't know if it's necessarily needed on the Raptors, but I think I want to touch on like the scaling down because I think there he showed signs, like we mentioned, like if you can compete defensively like he did, he has the physical tools to do it. Um, the playmaking has stepped up. It's taken a jump there, and then the 3-point shooting. I mean, he was second on the team in corner three percentage, field goal percentage at
Yeah.
40.8%. So that is something that can continue to be explored because I think he's unfortunately going to be in the corners a little bit more next season. I mean, depending on what pick the Raptors get, RJ Barrett might be coming off the bench, which
Yeah, fair.
honestly, not as a diss or anything, that's a way to get him the ball more. That's a way to maximize his game as, this slashing uh big guard coming off the bench is going to be your sixth man, which would be really good.
Yeah.
And he can still do all the things that he's developed with the ball in his hands. And then that's we'll see what happens. But I think the in between game is what would need to be developed. But I'm not sure how long that would take. I don't know if that's even feasible. But I think that just as a player for RJ, that's kind of where he lacks.
Yeah. I was it's something you mentioned that I think is super interesting. The idea of like RJ Barrett as a six man. I think a lot of people do see the juice to that, and it can be a really good like second unit anchor. But what I will say is, like you mentioned, Cody, and talk about like looking forward, an extension eligible guy. Are you going to pay your six man 20 some plus $1 million a year? Like, is that feasible? Is that something you think makes sense? You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
optically, I don't know if there's like many fans or even front offices that would like the idea of that. Just like the guy coming off your bench getting paid again, like 20, somewhere between 30 and $20 million, I assume, for his next contract, right? Maybe even higher, depending on how much RJ is looking for. We've seen what some of these other guys are getting. I'm not saying I'm not saying it is bad. I'm saying is it bad to you? Like I'm not exactly asking that question to you, Cody. I think it's more like rhetorical or just putting it out there. But like it is one of those things where like that's not a common thing you see, right?
And well, I mean, that's why this is such an interesting conversation. That's why we're
Yeah,
trying to project, because there's a lot of different things that can happen. I mean, he was in trade rumors. He was in a potential Brandon Ingram swap. Like there was potential that he was just going to be swapped right out, and the barbecue would
yeah,
actually be Barnes, Brandon, and Quickly. So again, a lot of interesting team building things to come with RJ Barrett. We'll have, I think, a clearer picture once the draft hits. I think
yeah.
we'll see where they draft. Like if they're going to go get another wing or a bigger forward, if they're going to land somebody like an Ace Bailey, God praying for Cooper Flag. But
Oh
then
yeah.
I think that there'd be too much overlap at that point, I feel. And then again, it's just what numbers are coming in at, a whole bunch of stuff. But career highs for him across the board this year, had a really good year. Again, took advantage, and he's been great in Darko's system. So we're talking about this like it's negative to RJ. I'm not trying to be negative. He played so well that he's going to price himself out of staying in Toronto,
Yeah,
unless he wants to take a discount, which is he can go get his money deservingly so. I don't think anybody would be mad at him for going and getting
not
the
at all.
bag
Yeah.
because he has real development strides, like we mentioned. But he just you got to pay everybody. They brought in Brandon Ingram. The front office kind of, by bringing in Ingram indirectly means that RJ Barrett is less.
And paying Ingram, right? Like they've already re-signed Ingram to an extension, so like I'm
They
not
need
saying
to
that's
see him
like
play.
a
Yeah,
yeah, like I said, I'm not even saying like that's like a diss to RJ or anything, but like they brought in Brandon Ingram, they prioritized re-signing him. Obviously, you traded for the guy, you're gonna want to re-sign him and kind of keep him around for a little bit. But like clearly that was a point of emphasis. And when you see there is overlap with a guy like RJ Barrett in some regards, or at least you can see how that takes opportunity away from RJ Barrett and RJ Barrett's extension eligible, kind of nearing free agency. You can see the pathway logically of like how that means RJ Barrett's time in Toronto is nearing an end.
yeah,
And like to what you said, he played so well that maybe he kind of just forced their hand in that situation. And kudos to RJ Barrett in that case, right? Like he had a great season, maybe or by all accounts a career year. And if that means he's too expensive now for the Raptors to keep, well, that's just basketball. Sometimes stuff like that happens. Unfortunately, go get your money.
yeah. But I think by all accounts he loves being here, so
Yeah.
maybe there's a pathway for it to work. But yeah, somebody who did get paid already, Emmanuel Quickly. I want to hear your thoughts because I I love the pickup. I had maybe my expectations were too high. I think maybe a lot of the fan base can resonate with what I'm saying. Maybe I was too blinded, but injuries or what you have it hasn't been pretty for IQ so far.
No, it quite honestly hasn't. I think there was a question, or I saw this post on Twitter where it was like every team's most disappointing player. And this graphic was insane, by the way. It had Scotty Barnes are there for the Raptors, which I just think is completely asinine. I don't think he was disappointed. I mean, he was a little disappointing, but I don't think he was by any means the most disappointing player. But for me, it was Emmanuel Quickly, not because when he was out there, he was necessarily bad. It's because of the entire circumstance of the situation. The excitement, like you said, of Cody, of not only trading for him, but then re-signing him with this complete intention of him being the lead guard, of him jumping into this starter role, and then that just completely being shut down by multiple injuries throughout the year. He ended up playing just 33 games throughout the entire season. Just like what I'm pretty sure the first game is when he first got hurt, right? Like it was like literally a couple minutes in, he bruised his tailbone or whatever it was. Like it was
Yeah.
just from the get-go. This guy could not find any consistency this season, which really sucked because last year he dealt with injuries as well. And then by the end of the year, when he was healthy, the Raptors were doing that whole start-stop thing with their main guys resting players like him, Jakob Poeltl, and RJ Barrett. So I think overall, like, not when I say disappointing, I don't mean necessarily his play, which obviously wasn't like lighting up the world either. But for me, Emmanuel Quickly's year was the most disappointing for all the excitement coming in off a new deal and just how none of it really came to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. It's almost unfortunate. It's almost hard to give analysis,
Yeah,
because it was so start stop. It was so injury riddled that, I mean, it's completely understandable why the on court product wasn't the best, but I think there was still some good in his game. He somehow got up 199 above the break threes. He was. I mean, I think people. Samson's been all over this. About his 3-point shooting, and it's just going and looking at his work on it. But yeah, I think everybody, especially Samson's been clamoring. Let's just shoot the ball, shoot it more. And above the break, he was really good, almost 38%. And that's what the Raptors need so desperately, is what Emmanuel Quickly can bring. That's why they brought him in. And I think he's trending in the right direction on that, of being just shoot it from above the break, some creation. Theoretically works with Scotty Barnes. On the court, it necessarily hasn't been the best, but again, so start stop. It's kind of hard to just look at the numbers on that. But I think it's the other things of Emmanuel Quickly's game that have been most concerning to me. How do you feel about the finishing around the rim, which hasn't been that bad, or sorry, has been bad.
yeah.
Under 58% in the restricted area. Even in the paint, he's just over 42%. That's one problem. The defense hasn't been as advertised, I guess.
Yeah, I think I wrote that down too. I think that just intensity defensively just has not been consistent.
So what do you make of, I mean, you can talk about the 3-point shooting, which, I mean, could be better. I think it's been all right. I think it's been pretty good, actually. But what are you making of his all-around game here?
Yeah, I'm going to touch on like some of those points, but very quickly, just to give people like an overview, like I did for the other guys. For Emmanuel Quickly, super quick: 17.1 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, just under 6 assists a game, 42% from the field, and 37.8% from three. Like you mentioned, he's had a pretty good 3-point shooting year. I will say his points and assists were career highs for a full season. Again, quote unquote, he played 33 games. But his second half with the Raptors, second half of last year when he was traded to the Raptors, I mean, his numbers were better than what they were now. But this technically counts as like a full season with this team this year.
He played more games last year.
Yeah, which is insanely ironic in that regard. But yeah, I think to what you were kind of alluding to with your question earlier about just like some of my concerns here, the interior scoring since he's been with the Raptors has really puzzled me. So like you mentioned some of those numbers, I looked at cleaning the glass as well. So 59% at the rim, that's 40th percentile, which is the worst it's been since his rookie year. And like part of me thinks, and I'm just speculating here, I'm curious to know what you think. It's just like you mentioned with RJ, I feel like the in-between game for Emmanuel Quickly has just completely vanished. Like, where's his floater gone? That was one of my favorite things to part of his game when he was with the Knicks. And I've talked about it repeatedly with the Raptors. Like, it comes out once in a while, but like, there's no in-between threat to kind of like freeze defenders or get by them. We obviously know he's a bit undersized when it comes to taking on some of these bigger players at the paint. So like, or in the restricted area. So I feel like just that disappearance of that in-between game has just like led to struggles at the rim. I don't know if I'm just making that up. I'm just trying to think of reasons why, but like you're right. To me, just the interior scoring just hasn't existed. The outside stuff has been awesome. Like his aggression there is growing. Like you see him being a bit more like I guess intentional with the pull-up shooting. That has been awesome for him. Like you mentioned, he has the best pull-up shooting numbers on this team. Obviously, it's gonna be a lot of fun with Brandon Ingram to see what Emmanuel quickly is able to do off the ball and add in that regard. But yeah, like as in terms of a scorer and a lead guard, you kind of want to see some more success getting to the basket, or at least providing that like I guess release valve. Because when he is getting paint touches, getting closer to the rim, that's when he can kick out, do the easy stuff as a point guard, and kind of find opportunities for others. But it just hasn't existed. And like I guess like what do you think of my working theory here about like the in between game not being there as part of it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, around the rim has been bad. And then he's trying to counter that, and which he's done his whole career in New York. And yeah, for some reason, it's not there. I don't even know what it is. I haven't dived into it specifically, but
Yeah,
there has to be some sort of rhyme or reason why in the paint he's only shooting 42%. There has to be some. I don't know if it's just one of those things that comes and goes. It's like RJ Barrett's free throws like percentage when he came
yeah,
to
fair.
Toronto last year. It's just like, well, maybe different things, obviously, but I'd have to dive in and figure out why that is. But yeah, that has disappeared. The defensive intensity hasn't quite been there. He has the tools again. Um, he he's long arms, quick, can do some point of attack things that I think we all want to see. And then it's just how do you think him actually being the point guard, him doing all the point guardy stuff? How do you think he looked this season, or honestly has looked in his Raptors tenure?
I think like his Raptors tenure so far, it's been a lot of start and stop. There's been like games or moments or bursts where there's so much zip on his passing. He's just looking to create for others, and you're like you can really see the vision there. But it's like it's a really different thing to have a guy do it consistently for a full season. And I think that's Emmanuel Quickly's challenge. His first game back after like his like 20 whatever game absence against the Brooklyn Nets, he was just super jumpy, really giddy, throwing the ball around, just zipping it. I think he had like 8 or 9 assists against the Nets. Granted, they're not the greatest defensive team, but like you can just tell he was looking to create for others. That's what he wanted to get out of that game. And then the next game against the Magic, which again, very good defensive team, very good perimeter defensive team, I understand, just struggled much more. But it wasn't as much about like him able to rack up the assists. It was just like he wasn't even looking to pass as much. He was just a lot more hesitant with his reads and moving the ball, in my opinion. So it's just one of those things where like it came and went as the season was going on, and it's that for me is like I don't want to say a concern, but when it comes to becoming an elite point guard, at least one of the top paid point guards in the league, or like higher paid ones rather, like you really do want to see consistency in terms of being able to play make for others. And like the numbers say he did get better there. Again, 5.8 assists around a career high, but like when you're that starting point guard and you really are leading this team in a ball movement heavy offense, like mind you, the Raptors, the people joke about it. I think Samson has said it before, like they're an assist farm. Like you should be able to rack those up and really get production out of that by finding other people.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just about finding that balance between trying to be the point guard and do all those point guardy things in pick and roll and all that, and then being aggressive for your shot. Like you can kind of tell we're talking
It is
about
hard to strike that balance. You're right.
we want him to pass more, we want him to shoot more. Well, you can only do one of those
Yeah.
things at a time. You know what I mean? And that requires with the ball in your hands quite a bit. Which I wonder what is going to look. Again, I've asked this for every one of them. I wonder what it's going to look like with Brandon Ingram. I really do, because I mean, his off the catch numbers are pretty good as well. Quickly, so it's gonna be interesting looking forward. But I think this is his first time getting the opportunity to be the lead guy. Got to find that balance, got to find the consistency, but the injuries have
Yeah,
completely
yeah. Like
derailed any momentum that he ever got. I remember towards the end of the year here, he had like a 2 or 3 game stretch where it was like 15 to 20 assists or so in a row without a turnover. I think he's been good at not turning the ball over, I will say. I think he doesn't turn the ball over very well. It's just about finding all that, finding all the consistency, finding the balance, and just playing with everybody and getting used to, just continuity. Continuity has been the theme of this episode. So I think it will continue to improve. He's paid. He's going to be around, so he has some time to
yeah.
figure it out.
He doesn't
But
have to worry about that, that's for sure.
you would like to start seeing the results sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I will say, like, one of the things you mentioned, just about like what's next for him. I'm also very curious to see what it's like with the Brandon Ingram, like type of play in the mix. Obviously, like we mentioned, he's a guy who can handle the ball a lot. Bi. So, do we see a lot more quickly off the ball? There's been like this push or this conversation about Emmanuel Quickly being the point guard, the lead guard, the initiator, part of the offense. And that's not to say he can't do those things, but are there times where if it's him and Brandon Ingram kind of running the show, is he more of an off-ball type of player? Which we saw how impactful he can be in New York as an off-ball guy. He's still very positive as an off-ball player, things he can do. He shot 37% on catch and shoot threes this year. Like, can he be a more of a play finisher? And does, like, whether that's at the rim with his struggles or not, like at least from the perimeter, he can probably be one of the more productive perimeter finishers for this Raptors team, especially with his pull-up shooting ability. And that's something the Raptors have desperately needed, especially to space things out. So if you have a guy like Scotty and Brandon Ingram already doing so much work in the middle or getting closer to the basket, like having a guy like Emmanuel Quickly out there to be that kind of exit option to kind of chuck up a three would probably be pretty promising or something the Raptors want to explore next year. So I'm with you. I think I'm curious to see if we see more off-ball juice from Emmanuel Quickly with Brandon Ingram around.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think that does it for this week when it comes to talking about like our season recaps. Obviously, RaptorsRepublic.com. We have individual articles for each player being done by the writers there, including some pieces we will be doing. I believe a piece on Darko Jakovic by Louis Zatzman as a season in review has already been put up on the website, so be sure to check that out at RaptorsRepublic.com. Individual pieces on players will be coming out within the coming weeks as well. But until then, let us know down below in the comments what you think. Do you agree with some of our points about like what's next for these players? What are positives? Or negatives were things they need to work on? Or do you see things differently? Let us know down below. But Cody, since we can't do it with the Raptors, we're just going to do it with the general NBA and talk some playoff basketball. Obviously, the first round is well underway. Most teams have played, every team has played one game, but most teams now have played at least two games in the first round. So this is very early. But what are your, initial impressions of playoff basketball this year?
Great. Oh my God. The product is so good. That's just been the overarching theme all year this season. And just sit down and watch honestly, really every series has shown some fight. Maybe, I don't know how fun Thunder Grizzlies has been to watch.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if there's been a lot of fight in that one, but you never know.
It is fun to just watch the Thunder in general just dominate. Well, a 51-point victory in game one? Ridiculous. Yeah. Ridiculous.
The Thunder got beaten the Grizzlies in 6 games this year, all of them by double digits. They just beat them up.
Well, I'm pretty sure the Thunder have beat a lot of teams by double digits. I think there was some stat. I can't remember, but it was like I can't remember.
Are you thinking about the point differential?
And how often that they beat teams by double digits, like slotted in somewhere. But
their point differential this year was like plus 12.9. So on average, they're beating teams by over like 12 points, which is the most in NBA history. Yeah, it's the highest point differential in league history. Like they were just clobbering teams.
There it is. So I guess we can touch on just there. I'll just go really quickly. I'm going to touch on every series. Thunder have been dominating the Grizzlies. Nuggets Clippers has been fun. Like that, every game is going to be a pick 'em. Like the odds even suggest that it's like -1 +1. Super fun chess match. Can Jokic overcome everything going on around him? The defense there, and the Clippers, like in Kawhi, what a game to win in game 2. That was big. Lakers T-Wolves. Lakers just tied it up. What a defensive performance. Luka, Luka. And after Minnesota in game 1, I may be showing some more fight than people thought. But that looked like it's going to be not a walk in the park for the Lakers like a lot of people thought. Golden State. I picked Golden State to take down the Rockets, and what a game 1. What a game 1. That defense has really – it was kind of like the Raptors. The Warriors had a bit of a weakened schedule coming down the wire, and they had the best defensive rating from like mid-February on or something like that. It was like them in Toronto. But they forced a ton of deflections, and it worked for them in Houston, and I think game 2's tonight. So that's the West. Maybe you can touch on the East. Or do you want to touch on? I've been talking. You get some thoughts now.
No, I'm kind of with you. It's been very good basketball so far for the most part. Obviously, in the East, there's a couple series where there's only been one game, but Cavs Heat was, I guess, fun for a little bit, and then Ty Jerome and Donovan Mitchell kind of took over against the Heat. Good fight from Miami, but also Ty Jerome, my lord, 28 points in that game, his first ever playoff game. He just went nuts. There was a couple of weeks ago when he was beefing with Paolo, and Ty Jerome was like, I could probably start on your team. Hey, if you play like that, Ty, you could probably start on a lot of teams. And speaking of the Orlando Magic, Ty was probably right. He could very much start for the Orlando Magic. They could use him. Boston took care of Paolo and those guys. Paolo was awesome in his one game so far, but he has been the last two playoffs, I think, for the most part. It's just his supporting cast hasn't always been there, giving him a full 100% as well.
Orlando had a good first half, though, in game one. They had a good
first
half.
They won the first half.
And then the offense dried up, which has been the story on them for 2 years.
Boston just remembered, like, oh, yeah, we could just take more 30 more threes than this team. And then Indiana, I picked them to win that series, but so far they have been just dominant against the Bucks. I'm going to ask something about the Bucks in a bit, but like overall, they've just been way faster, way more athletic, just way more intentional on offense. The Bucks zone defense is doing nothing to Indiana. Pascal Siakam has looked sharp as hell. Tyrese Halliburton. Yeah. I don't get how you think he's overrated, NBA players. If you saw that anonymous poll that just has been going around, Tyrese Halliburton has been awesome. Andrew Nembhard, shout out Aurora. He's been fantastic for them as well.
You convinced me. You on the podcast that when I put up my official picks on Twitter, I ended up going Indiana. But it was all you. I thought that Milwaukee was going to have the best player in the series, but they're not quite too healthy. They're not quite healthy, and
honestly, they still technically do have the best player. But like, so Giannis, if he's like here, like Pascal Siakam has been so good that he's been just enough. And then when you add the rest of the depth that's played up for the Pacers, like it gets them over the top. Versus like the other guys on Milwaukee just haven't. Obviously, Dame didn't play game one. He came back game two, was a little rusty. I think he shot like 4 of 13 or something in game two.
Yeah,
where no one's gonna blame him for that. He's coming back from a blood clot issue, so obviously just the fact that he's out there playing is remarkable as it is. Hopefully, we can see Dame kind of like hit his stride a little bit. But yeah, overall, the Pacers have just kind of like outran the Bucks, and then the Knicks Pistons series.
How about the Pistons?
My God, I love this team, man. This Pistons team is so scrappy. They're just so much fun. Their win against the Knicks. Obviously, you might have seen it's been going around. It was the Knicks' first playoff win since 2008. It snapped
the Pistons' first win.
The Pistons. The Pistons' first playoff win since 2008. 15 in a row they had lost, which is an NBA record. So for them to pull this out, I think was awesome. There's a video of a fan going around who literally was crying because the Pistons won a playoff game. So shout out to that fan. And just the awesome moment that's happening for Detroit. Man, they're just built perfectly. They Trajan Langdon, I'm pretty sure he's in their front office there. If it's not, I apologize. But like bringing in Dennis Schroeder, right? Like, so when Jaden Ivey goes down, they need a secondary ball handler, somebody who can take some of the load off of Cade Cunningham. He fits in perfectly with these guys. He hit that big shot towards the end of the game against the Knicks that kind of helped ice things. And then like what Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris have been doing throughout the year as well, just being consistent shot makers. Tobias Harris matching up against Cat has actually caused problems for the Knicks. I think has been very good for them defensively as well. So it's been just an awesome series there, but I've rambled enough about the East side. I think we both touched about it a bit. I kind of want to go through, I have a couple superlatives or like questions to go through super quick to give our thoughts on this. And we'll go through them one by one, but like starting with best player in the playoffs so far, it's you.
Oh, our best player?
Or like your favorite player, maybe. How about that? It could be I.
Man, I don't know. I mean, Siakam's been great, man. Like
he has been awesome.
I don't know if he's been the best, but I'm just gonna say Siakam for the lack of me sitting here actually thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I did just talk a lot about the Pistons, but Cade Cunningham.
Cade Cunningham's this time.
I picked him as like my breakout, but he's averaging 27 points, which is sixth, 9 rebounds, 7.5 assists. He's averaging the most turnovers in the playoffs, but it's a guy in his first playoff series. And the Knicks kind of have a lot of bodies they're throwing at him, so I'm not too worried. And also, Kawhi Leonard, you talked about him. That second game, this dude he might actually be a robot. He is surgical right now. He's averaging over 30 points, 4.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 2.5 steals. Through 2 games, he's shooting 70% from the field and 50% from 3. Is
Yeah,
this the best Kawhi we've seen since 2019?
I mean, it has to be, and that's why
Right?
people, if he can keep playing well, that's why I picked the Clip. I think I picked the Clippers. I have it going 7 regardless. I think this series
Yeah.
is so close, but he's playing well. Zubac has been great. Harden is still doing his thing, but yeah, there's been a lot of good players in the playoffs. Like obviously Luka, Giannis is doing his thing. Paolo, Brunson have all done their
Yeah.
thing as well. I just
All
wanted to
right.
say
So
Siakam for fun.
no, for sure, and he has been really good, and they're beating up the Bucks quite honestly because of what Siakam's doing.
Yeah.
All right, so best series. What do you think is the best series so far?
I mean, I've been this Nuggets Clippers one. I think is really it has to be one of these ones in the West. Maybe Knicks Pistons.
Yeah, Knicks Pistons gets a shout, I guess.
It's Knicks Pistons, but this Nuggets Clippers series is really fun to me. I think Lakers T Wolves is more interesting as well. So I think those three are the most fun. Maybe the Rockets make the Warriors one interesting as well. Everything's good outside of the 1-8. It's really been fun.
Yeah, literally the three I had were Nuggets, Clippers, Knicks, Pistons, Lakers, Wolves. Like you said, if the Rockets win, then we'll add them in and it'll get interesting. Nuggets, Clippers for me has been like the most interesting just because like tactically there's just so much going on and how these teams match up. Like, okay, Zubac is probably as good of a defensive player as you could put on a guy like Jokic. He's not going to stop him, which we've seen, but can he match up well? Well, Jokic is still doing his thing against Zubac. Same thing for Aaron Gordon on the other side. He's probably as good of a defender as you could put on Kawhi Leonard. It hasn't mattered so far. Kawhi Leonard is just shooting over him and he's being surgical. What are you getting from the other guys? Like Chris Dunn has been awesome for the
Yeah,
Clippers defensively. James Harden's kind of been doing his thing on that side of the ball as well as an offensive player. But then you have on the other side, Russell Westbrook is hitting threes. He's like, I want to say like 7 for 12 or 5 for 13, something like that. Like Russell Westbrook is hitting open shots. MPJ, he got basically played off the floor in game one. In game two, he was hitting amazing shots for them, hustling for them. Obviously, they ended up losing that game, the Nuggets did, but he was out there showing that he proved that he can be out there. So, like, there's just so much back and forth between this team. Like, game one, Clippers had too many turnovers, Nuggets win. Game two, Nuggets have too many turnovers, Clippers win. You can't make mistakes in this series. And when you do, the other team will capitalize. So it's such a cat and mouse game that I think, for me, that's been the best one.
yeah, I agree. It's been a fun playoff series. Just great basketball across the board, to be honest, and can't wait for more games to keep coming down the pipeline here.
Okay, two last ones super quick. What's been your biggest surprise or like favorite surprise of the playoffs so far?
Favorite surprise, eh?
It could be a moment, a player, a coach, a thing. I don't know, anything.
Yeah, maybe a couple of shows. Like I picked the Warriors. I didn't think the defense would be that good.
Yeah,
I,
fair.
I that's one thing. I didn't think the Thunder would win by 51. I knew they were good, but I don't know if that's more of a Thunder thing or more of a Memphis thing or a little bit of both. But probably that
Yeah.
51-point victory was just wow. Okay, because there was some. I mean, we brought it up on the podcast. The Thunder. Do you fully buy in? Do you fully think with they haven't they've won one playoff series, right? So
Yeah.
um, how much do you buy into that? But all the numbers, like the defense was so good this year. Again, it's been in the playoffs, but let's see them against a team not against the Grizzlies to fully make assumptions. But yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. But that 51-point victory is probably the most surprising thing.
Yeah, there's like you don't see that kind of stuff in the playoffs happen like often because it's just the games are a lot more physical, they're tighter, everything's more serious, rotations are a lot more neater and stuff like that. So you're right. I think that was a huge surprise. I will say I am believing in this other team, but they did sweep the Pelicans last year and then they didn't make it out of the second round, right? So you do kind of have to see it to believe it when it comes to the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see. My other surprises were kind of stuff we already mentioned. Or you mentioned Cody, the Warriors team defense was awesome in game one against the Rockets. That's a not a juggernaut offensive Rockets team by any means, but also keeping them at like 84 points or wherever it was in the playoffs is surprising. I already mentioned Ty Jerome and the Pistons, so I think that pretty much covers most of the big surprises. The last one I want to ask, Cody, biggest disappointment in the playoffs. I have a couple here, but I kind of want to hear if you have anything that pops up to your head. Again, same thing, player, coach, moment, anything that you can think of.
Yeah, these are. I was not briefed on these, so I'm really
Yeah,
just.
sorry. I kind of threw these
I'm
at
just
you.
no, it's fun. I'm ripping it right off the dome. Biggest disappointment, maybe just Milwaukee, man. Like I understand there's the injury problems and everything going on with Dame, but you have one of the best players in the league, one of the freakiest players of this era of basketball, and They got that championship, but outside of that, it's been not the best run here. And who knows if Rangers are coming down the pipe, say they get swept by Indy here. Um, it would be a brutal exit for Milwaukee again if they 4 or 5 games to Indiana, and that's honestly looks like how it's trending.
Yeah, the Bucks were my biggest disappointment so far. And I know I've hated on Doc Rivers quite a bit, very publicly, and that's not a surprise. But quite honestly, I think a lot of it just comes down to that. Like, this team did not come out looking ready in game one. The biggest thing with Doc Rivers that I find is just there's no adjustments. He's going to continue to play his starters. I think I was listening to the No Dunks podcast today, and they were talking about how a guy like Torian Prince went like years not playing basically any minutes or was a deep bench guy. And now he's starting playoff games. He started for the Lakers when he was with Darvin Ham because Darvin Ham, for some reason, loves Torian Prince. And oh, look, Darvin Ham is now an assistant on the Bucks. And guess who's playing for the Bucks? Torian Prince. Like, Andre Jackson was great for you defensively throughout the regular season at times. There's a clip going around of him like locking up SGA for a possession or two. Like, throw him in there. Maybe see what he can do against some of these dynamic guards on the Indiana Pacers. But instead, you're sticking with a guy in Kyle Kuzma out there who had 0 points. He had the Tony Still stat line in game one. Game two, he looked a bit better, I guess. He had 8 points in the second half. He finished with 12 on 5 of 10 shooting, 0 of 3 from downtown. Like, Kuzma isn't offering you anything defensively. Obviously, Dame, we're not going to blame him. He's coming back. He's a little rusty. But what are you getting from the other guys? And is your team preparing you for that? I don't think the coaching staff has prepared these guys all that well. It's kind of just relying on Giannis to do what he can and lift everyone else up. And then when you don't have a Bobby Portis or Gary Trent Jr. hitting shots or doing things that you need them to do, well, then you're getting the crap kicked out of you by the Pacers team that, again, just looks younger, faster, more athletic. So I think the Bucks have been my biggest disappointment. Another one I wanted to throw at you, Cody, is I don't want to say the Knicks have been disappointing because I don't think they have. It's obviously a 1-1 series. But I will say is I think like the hallmark of like a really good team is like not playing with your food all that often. At least like especially when it comes to the playoffs. In the regular season, it's different. But in the playoffs, I think you don't kind of do that, especially early on. I think it was a missed opportunity not winning that second game against the Pistons because they did come back. The first one, you punched them in the mouth. There was that 21-0 run by the Knicks that really caught this young Pistons team off guard. They didn't know how to respond. In the second game, the Pistons were poised. Yes, they were able to kind of like keep you at arm's length for a little bit, but I think the Knicks didn't help themselves. Their execution down the stretch, I didn't love. And Jalen Brunson, very good player, obviously, MVP caliber player, but like it was a lot of Jalen Brunson for the Knicks towards the end of the game there.
Well, that's what it is. That's the New York Knicks. They are gonna live and die with Jalen Brunson creating like that. And that's Tom Thibodeau. That's Jalen Brunson's their best creator. So Tom Thibodeau's just gonna let Brunson do it. You know, the Knicks have their 6 best guys. So Tom Thibodeau's, why wouldn't you play their 6 best guys 49 minutes? You know, or you can't.
Yeah, like
you know what I mean, but.
Yeah, but Mikal Bridges gets like 2 good looks at the end there. Like he isn't able to capitalize on those. That was tough. But my biggest thing with why I think the Knicks have been a bit disappointing is like, where's Cat been? Karl Anthony Towns, an all-star, a guy who's one of the best bigs in the league, stretch big, like arguably the best stretch big in the league, next to like I'd say Jokic, who can let it fly from downtown. But like in the second half of these games, he has been just very, I guess, non-existent. I think again in the game 2, in the second half, he didn't even take a shot. So far in fourth, so Cat for the series and through 2 games is averaging 16.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 2 steals, and a block and a half on 60% from the field. Only 20% from 3, but again, it's 2 games. But like, so his numbers aren't awful. But in the fourth quarters through this 2 games, he has a combined 7 points. He's attempted a combined 5 shots.
Brutal.
Through 2 fourth quarters. Like that's a guy who is one, like he should be your second option, first option in some cases. Like what's happening? Like I get the Jalen Brunson thing, but I feel like that's something you need to address.
Yeah, that and it's all partly because it's all Brunson, but yeah, that's part of it. And yeah, amongst the top 20 scorers, Brunson has the lowest field goal percentage in the playoffs right now, 44.4% of the top 20 guys leading in points per game. So yeah, that's been a bit of a combination. The Pistons defense has also not been making it easy. I want to give Detroit credit here. They're also doing their thing as well, and they're aggressive and they're physical. Obviously, we know how they like to play, and Dennis Schroeder has been doing great things for them as well. So Detroit's no pushover team. You wanted to make that clear. They've played the Knicks well. this season. So maybe they have some. I have to specifically dive in and figure out what that is, but maybe they have some sort of intel, or their game plan specifically is doing a good job because they played them all year.
Yeah, fair. The super last question. I want just a yes or no answer. Dive into it if you want. The game T-shirts you get at playoff games. Should you wear them? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh.
I'm biased. I say yes.
Yeah. Or you can. I only almost said no because you could like whip it around like a towel, but it's not
fair.
like a rally towel; it's a shirt. So I would
Yeah.
put it on. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason why, and again, this has been a conversation online recently about like
Really?
some people have been, there's been like some people of like fan bases that have been like, no, you have to wear the shirts, and others being like, nah, whatever. But then like the reason why I really like it is because when you look at like these awesome moments of players on the ground or celebrating with fans and everything, and then in the pictures, it's just a sea of that color. So like a sea of blue in Oklahoma City, like a sea of yellow in Golden State, like it just looks
Yeah.
so awesome having just that unison. And like it just reminds me again when the playoffs were happening in Toronto, you had like a sea of red or a sea of white and just all
White.
these
Yeah.
fans like all together. You know what I mean? Like there's a picture of I think it was Case and Wallace on the Thunder, and you have all these like fans wearing blue, and there's this one guy courtside in just this neon yellow highlighter like t-shirt, and I guess he didn't want to wear it, and it just stuck out so much, and it just killed I guess the unison of it all for me. Maybe I'm just being like a bit too like fixated on this, but I also like looked at it, and apparently a lot of Thunder fans weren't happy with that guy either. And that guy for some reason like has been going off on Twitter being like, "Oh, I don't need to wear the shirt. I bought these tickets, blah blah blah." But like, just
Oh, okay.
be a fan, man. Like, just have fun with it, and like it just looks cooler to me. Like, let me know in the comments below if you guys think I'm being an idiot or if you agree with it, Cody. But yeah, like you're in on the shirts.
Yes.
Hell yeah. Okay, cool. All right, enough rambling about that. Let's end this off with some very, very quick CBL chatter, Cody. Because obviously, like I mentioned earlier, the season is less than a month away. The CBL draft has happened. 3 rounds of the CBL draft, drafting players out of the OUA and collegiate sports as well in Canada. What do you make of that, at least just to start us off?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, they introduced it, and I have it here. 3 players were selected out of CCA schools, so that's lovely to hear. Lovely to see. 30 Canadian athletes out of 25 different Canadian post secondary institutions. So again, just continuing to build up Canadian sports, like the amount of good leagues that are coming into Canada now with actual pipelines for collegiate athletes to continue to play professionally in Canada is really cool. Between the PWHL, between the NSL, I believe it is, with the women's soccer. So everything's popping up here, and yeah, obviously first overall pick, the Montreal Alliance, Sultan Hayter Beatty. Had a really good year with Brandon. He's kind of the headliner of this class. At 6'4", he led the Canada West in rebounds at over 10 per game, which is like nearly unheard of. And to go along with nearly 21 points, which was second in Canada West, and to go along with 4.6 assists. So he had an absolute monster year. He's kind of the headliner. But yeah, it was obviously continue to do good things. A lot of CEBL content is going to be coming this summer. We're going to try to push that between us. So, and why not, right? Why not?
Exactly. I think it's an exciting time. Like you said, it's a huge development pipeline for people in Canada. And as some of you may know, I will be back with the CEBL. I will be writing for the league as well. So be sure to look out on the content there. But also with Raptors Republic, me and Cody, like you mentioned, Cody, we will be holding it down and giving you guys information, analysis, opinions on the CEBL. But just to wrap up the draft conversation, I think the stuff you mentioned was super important. Just the inclusion of collegiate athletes, I think, is huge because we've seen it. It's been proved as like a proof of concept thing with the OUA athletes is that getting these reps and developing with these CBL teams, whether you're playing or not in games all the time, is important for your development. A guy like Simon Hildebrand, like he's just been awesome in the CBL in a role. It's just like one of the guys, but then he goes back to his university team, and he's one of the best players in all of OUA. Like he's just balling. Diego Mafia, same thing out west. He's with the Vancouver Bandits, goes back to his collegiate team. I think he's with the Vikes or UBC, one of them, and he is just playing incredible basketball there. there's a couple guys like that throughout the CBL. And like you said, now you have Montreal Lions. They had the first pick last year as well. I think they picked Ismail Diouf, if I'm saying his name right.
Yep.
And then he's playing in the NCAA, and he's been a pretty productive player there. So I think it's just there's a huge pipeline for Canadian athletes that's growing throughout the CBL. And that's the biggest things you want to see out of these kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at this draft specifically, Aaron Rooms is exactly that. He 6'6" guard. It's the third year Rooms has been taken in the CBL draft,
Yeah.
and he continues to improve, and he's improved in his draft stock as well. But yeah, he was fantastic. He led the OUA in scoring, nearly 22 points, 6.5 rebounds, 2 assists, shot almost 42% from three. First team All Canadian honors, OUA Player of the Year. He's developing, and he's absolutely crushed. And now he's going to look for a bigger role with Edmonton Stingers. He was selected 8th overall. So, yeah,
It's going to be. I just want to touch on Rooms real quick. Like, I expect a big season from him with the Stingers. Like, in the last couple seasons, he has been like, again, a role player. And I think it was last year. I believe it was with the Brampton Honey Badgers. Because of injuries, he got more of a role and he got to step in a little bit. So I think just like having that opportunity with his team to play against more professional, like kind of like sharpened players, you saw the impact of what it had on his university season, and now bringing that back to the CBL. I expect big things from Broom, so I'm glad you shouted him out.
Well, one other player, really quick. I know this is a long episode. This is probably going to be our longest run it back episode of all time, maybe.
It's the off season. We get to yap. That's okay.
Yeah. DJ Jackson, 6th overall to the Calgary Surge, absolutely dominated the AUS. First team All Canadian honors, was the league's MVP. 24.5 points, led the AUS. 7.4 rebounds as a 6'4" guard, 9th in the league or in the conference, and over 4 assists, which was 4th in the conference as well. So somebody else wanted to shout out, somebody else to keep an eye on. But yeah, that I think we'll wrap up the draft. We can always dive into it more, just kind of run it at a time today. A couple big signings in the CEBL as well. One name familiar to we've talked about quite a bit, Quincy Guerrier, signing with the Montreal Alliance. Really cool to see him, Montreal, Quebec native, go and play for his hometown team, which he has even said, Guerrier, returning to Montreal represents something indescribable for me. So really cool that he's going to be able to do that. Obviously had a bit of an up and down season with the 905, was in and out of the rotation, finished really strong though. And then he should be one of the best players in the CBL, I think, like with his blend of athleticism, physicality, rebounding, length, defensive versatility, play finishing. Like he should really help this Alliance team, which desperately needs it.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, especially that last point. Last year, the Alliance just riddled with injuries. Like they have Ahmed Hill, who was, I believe, if he is back, he's been one of the best scorers in the CBL the last couple of seasons. But he even had injury stints. The rest of their guard rotation was kind of like battered with injuries. So it kind of really took away any momentum and consistency for Montreal, which sucked because they were host city for championship weekend last year. So they kind of they missed out. I mean, they got to play in the playoffs, but they didn't really get to capitalize a whole lot beyond that. So yeah, Quincy Guerrier, like you mentioned, he was in and out of the Raptors 905 rotation a little bit, but when he did play, he wasn't a guy who got hurt much. He was always out there. He was able to contribute when he was on the floor. So I think just that consistency will be really good for this Montreal Lions team. And just for him, again, like you said, Cody, such a cool opportunity playing in his hometown. The 905 played against the Long Island Nets. They played a couple games in Montreal this year. And like you mentioned, he just loved that opportunity, being in that atmosphere, being close to home. And now he gets to do that again. And for anyone who's out in the Montreal area or want something to do in the summer, May 23rd, the Montreal Alliance are playing an outdoor basketball game against the Ottawa Blackjacks at the IGA Stadium. So that's a very cool thing the CBL and the Montreal Alliance are putting on. It's like obviously you get to see basketball, like professional basketball played outdoors, something you don't get to see all that often. So be sure to check it out. But Cody, there was also another signing that was pretty darn big, I guess, for the CBL if you're just looking at like impact and impressions. Tristan Tjass, or tjass as he's known by a lot of people, a famous YouTuber and social media influencer, he signed a professional contract with the Vancouver Bandits. So we're talking about a guy who's never played professional basketball in any capacity. In fact, he's never played collegiate basketball in any capacity. This was a high school baller who took a camera and a dream and somehow made it all the way to a professional basketball league with the Vancouver Bandits. What do you make of tjass signing with them?
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Like, it's totally unique. It's totally just out there. So we'll see. Obviously, it's going to bring some more eyes to the CEBL, which is always a good thing. But according to Bandits head coach and general manager Kyle Julius, it's not just about the eyes. Quote, Tristan has clearly developed a skill set worthy of competing with pros at a high level, unquote. So we've seen him do it in the All-Star Celebrity game, put up 27 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists this past season. He also previously joined the Scarborough Shooting Stars in 2024 he had a workout with them.
Yeah.
So I guess there is some professional experience in some capacity. That's the closest to professional experience he's gotten on the court. But yeah, he seems to be excited. They seem excited to have him. And I guess we'll see what happens. Can't provide much analysis outside of we gotta wait and see because there's nothing I can go off of. But yeah.
Well, what I will mention is that if you are interested, tjass did put a YouTube video out where he does kind of outline a bit of the experience and how it got to this point. It's very well done and gives good context in it. But the short of it all is, like you mentioned, Cody, last summer he did have a workout with the Scarborough Shooting Stars, and basically that was something that was put on by one of his sponsors, which is Electrolyte, who also works with the CEBL. And after that, Electrolyte more or less just reached out to every CBL team and they're like, "Hey, what would you think about signing tjass or giving him an opportunity?" And basically the Vancouver Bandits were the one team to reach back and be like, let's talk about it. Let's give it a shot. So not to like downplay this by any means, but just to give added context, it is technically a training camp tryout deal is how the team has phrased it.
Okay.
But based on tjass's video is they've I guess promised him minutes in the first 2 games. And I don't know if that means first 2 games of the regular season or just the preseason. My guess is it's minutes throughout the preseason games because in a lot of their like leading up news stuff or their press releases, they've mentioned you can watch tjass play in their preseason games specifically. So that makes me think, it's probably more preseason stuff. Again, I'm not throwing anything out the window when it comes to CEBL. They love giving opportunities to players, and it's a growing league. So having tjass and his 5.6 million YouTube subscribers definitely does not hurt. But overall, I'm with you. It's a really cool opportunity for him. I've watched enough of his videos to know that he's no slouch. It's obviously a very, very different thing at the professional level, especially being a 5'9" guard.
That's the biggest thing is going to be, I think the size is going to hold them back. But yeah, if he makes the team, he makes the team. I don't know. Thanks for providing some more insight on that behind the scenes sort of thing. I wasn't aware of that. So I guess we'll see if it is just a training camp preseason thing for whatever reason, or if it turns into more. But I'm sure he's going to give it his all no matter what.
Yeah, I will say is if he does end up making this roster, there's no doubt in my mind that he's earned it because Kyle Julius, the coach of the Vancouver Bandits and general manager, if you've met him even for 10 minutes, you know that is one of the most hard-nosed, just grinded out guys you'll meet, and a guy who is insanely dedicated to winning. And honestly, it's a little intimidating at times speaking to him because he's just so intense when it comes to winning basketball games. So if tjass has made this team and he's out there to play for them, it's not at the risk of them winning games. Kyle Julius just would never do that, in my opinion, based on what I know about the guy. So if tjass is there and he's being put into games, it's because Kyle thinks he can help them win. So that's what I will say. I wouldn't say it's going to be a gimmick at that point, but it'll be interesting to see Cody. At the end of the day, year 7 of the CBL is about to get started. For those who don't know, there are 10 teams, all in Canada. I think it's like 60 or 70% of the league is made up of Canadians, if not more. So it's exciting to see basketball north of the border return.
Yeah, can't wait. Obviously, we're going to try to bring some content. I've already started bringing content to the channel. So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled for more of that. We'll have you covered.
Hell yeah. With that being said, though, Cody, I think we have covered everything. We've yapped enough this week.
It should be. I would hope, though. We're an hour 20 in.
Yeah. Well, look, it's been a while since we've been able to chat with each other. We were just excited when it comes to talking about the playoffs, talking about the CBL, and obviously talking about the Raptors and our season, I guess, recaps of players. We'll have more of these in the coming weeks. Let us know down below. Who do you want to see us talk about next? Is it some of the other veteran guys like a Jakob Poeltl? Is it the rookies like Jamal Shed, Jacoby Walter, Jonathan Mobo, Jamison Battle? I'm just naming players at this point. There's guys in between, obviously, like Ochai Abaji as well. You could even talk about or some of the other guys. Let us know down below who you want us to talk about next. But in the meantime, that does it for us. And we want to thank you for tuning in to another edition of Run It Back on the Raptors Republic Network. Again, as always, please make sure to like this video, share it on your feed so we can reach more people and grow this Raptors Republic community. And make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're not missing any of the great content here at Raptors Republic or any of the news, opinion, and analysis at raptorsrepublic.com. But with that being said, everybody, have a great week. For myself and Cody, we'll be back soon when we run it back. Peace.